Okay, so welcome everyone, and welcome to our partner schools as well. Let's come to a standing position in front of our mats. So I've been struggling with back pain, as you guys know, recently, and apologies to partner schools that there haven't been a couple of missed videos in that respect. So today's session is going to be nice and easy, okay? Yoga should always be in response to how your body's feeling. I know we've got a couple of guys that had their vaccinations, they're not feeling up for it today. A few other people that have said they've just got a few little bits of soreness in the body. So I think today, particularly with me being a little injured at the moment, will be a perfect opportunity just to take it easy, okay? So we're going to do a more of a yin-inspired session today, and we're not going to look to do any advanced poses or anything like that. So no headstands this week. We'll get back to those next week, I'm sure. Okay, so just start by very gently getting some twists in here. Remember, we're still thinking about those key principles, all right? We've got that piece of string, elongating the body up, elongating the spine. We're taking nice deep breaths in through the nose and out through the nose still. So don't lose sight of that at all. And just try and start to rev this up a little bit more now. Try and get those rotations a little bit further and a little bit faster. And as always, if at any point, as we just come into Tadasana now, so slight bend in the knees, hands nice and wide, pull that tailbone down, and just come into a slightly straightened leg position here. So yeah, anytime you're feeling in any yoga practice that you're doing, that you're just not quite up for it, then just take a back seat, all right? Just try and do what you can, but there's no point in pushing the body beyond what it's capable of doing. So where you are, on a big in breath, let's reach up right above the head here. Pull that belly button into the spine. Try and crush the head with the arms, okay? Obviously that's an impossibility, but it's a good way of thinking about it. And from here, we're going to dive down on our exhalation. We're going to get chest to knee. Now, I can't actually demo this pose properly at the moment. Okay, this is the forward fold. The most important thing is that you get your chest onto your knees. Okay, so breathing nice and deep in this position. I'll join you in a very rudimentary version because of my back. I'll just take a few breaths here. See if you can get your palms flat on the floor. Doesn't matter how bent your knees are. And then from here, we're going to half bend. So straight legs, straight back. Always just breathing nice and deep. Okay, trying to breathe in as deeply as you can. Straight legs, straight back. Good stuff. And then from here, we're just going to very gently step back into a plank. Okay? We're just going to come down through Chaturanga. And then just as we hit the floor, we'll just maybe try for a couple of press ups. If you need to do these on your knees, then by all means do. There's nothing wrong with that. And just for this last one, come and rest yourself nice and gently on the mat here. You're going to come into Makarasana, also known as Crocodile Pose. So what you want to do is have both palms directly below the forehead. Your feet, you can either have the toes pointing out, pointing in towards one another, that's my personal favorite, or you can have the toes pointing directly back. So that's your choice. Play around with all three and see which one's most comfortable for you. And then the head comes onto the back of the palms. We're still pulling the belly button into the spine. We're still looking to push the tailbone down. We're still trying to stay strong in the core and focus on the breath. So whenever we have a slightly gentler practice, it's always good to remind ourselves of maybe some more intermediate skills, like the bandhas, okay? Like trying to keep the energy locked in the body. Okay? From here, you can go into either an upward dog or a baby cobra. I can't do that, so I'm actually going to do Sphinx myself. So if your back's a little bit sore, or you don't fancy full upward dog or baby cobra, this is a nice variety that takes a bit of pressure off the back because you're taking the weight through the elbows here a little bit. So just a nice few breaths here, whether you're in Sphinx, Cobra, or the full upward dog, doesn't really matter. Cobra is, for those asking, is in between the two. So upward dog, I'll just demo quickly here, is with the hips off the ground. Cobra is with straight arms, but the hips are on the ground. And then Sphinx, you're on your elbows. Okay? And then from here, wherever you are, let's come into a downward facing dog. Don't even worry
about getting those legs sorted until you've got your upper body sorted, okay? So we're going to try and push the mat as far away from us as we can with our hands. We're going to let the head hang down, and only then we're going to think about lowering the ankles to the ground. And if you're anything like me, and you maybe haven't practiced since we last met on Friday, or maybe you missed Friday and it's been a little while, it can be a little bit disheartening sometimes, coming back to it after you've had a bit of time off, but don't worry, stick with it as we just gently hop into a sumo squat here. Feet nice and wide on the mat, toes slightly pointing out. Let's get those heels on the ground. Best way to get the heels on the ground is to have the feet slightly wider, so that you're not up here. Brilliant. Heels down. Good. And you can use the prayer shape here with the hands just to open the hips a little bit more. But coming back to what I was saying, is that it can be quite disheartening, and you can feel you've made no progress or you've maybe regressed slightly. But the fact of the matter is, whether you're here with us in person or with us at a later date online, you're still engaging in this, and that's the most important thing. It's the taking part that counts, so we're told. I know we like to win, but in yoga there's no winning. Now, I said we wouldn't do any advanced poses. I don't think crow is a particularly advanced pose. I know most of you are happy with that, so you can go into crow. For anyone that needs a little bit of guidance on this, I'll just talk you through it. We want to keep in this sumo squat position, but rather than the majority of our weight being through our feet, we're going to shift it through our hands here, okay? So we're going to start to put that weight into the hands, and we're then just gently going to take 1 foot off the ground, okay? If you're new to this, just 1 to begin with, and then you'll just very gently want to see if you can take that 2nd foot off the ground like this, and just see how long you can hold the crow for. So close, so close. Just have a look around. I can see a couple of you just aren't doing this, and that's great. Yeah, that's really good. You know your body, you don't want to do it. You could stay in sumo squat if you want. Okay. So yeah, come into sumo squat if you want, because that won't be any pressure through the hands then. Very good. Very good. We got someone that might be challenging my PB over here. That's excellent. Well done, everyone. Okay, wherever you are, come out of crow and just come back into a plank. And then we're going to keep the toes tucked under the feet here as we come back and just sit on our heels. All right. We'll just take a few breaths here. Again, staying strong in the core. We've got the string, just elongating the spine. We're pulling that tailbone down. A couple more breaths here. If it feels easy, you could get hold of those heels and push the pelvis up into the air. Okay? Whatever you do, don't let the head fall back like this. Stay strong in the neck, because you don't want to compress any nerves in the back of the neck. I might have mentioned it to you already, but that's actually one of the #1 ways that yogis get injured, is compressed nerves in the back of their neck. So they don't support the weight of their head when they do poses like this. So strong in the neck at all times. As we just gently come out of pose and onto all fours here. We'll run through a couple of cat-cows. Okay, so the cow, you're looking to push the glutes up, shoulder blades come together, belly button gets pushed down towards the floor. And then as we come into cat, we invert that posture. We arch the spine. We push the shoulders, the pectoral muscles towards one another in the front of the chest. So just work with the breath as we exhale. Sorry, as we inhale, we come into cow. And as we exhale, we go into cat. So a couple more there of each one. And then for the last cow, take a big breath in, push the glutes high into the air, and then exhale as well. And you should just lock in a little bit further to that position. And we might even creep down for a puppy pose here. All right, so we're going to try and get the chest down towards the ground, hands come out nice and far away from the body. So we just breathe here. Always using that breath as the object of cognizance. Very important we look to do that. And then from here we can actually just traverse nice and easily into Sphinx pose. Okay, so just come onto your elbows. You can just shoot forward straight into it. Nice. If you're comfortable here in Sphinx, stay in Sphinx. If you want a little bit more, you can link the hands behind the back. Okay, get the big toes, the heels, and the knees together. Gently bring those up off the ground. Chin comes down towards the chest as the head also comes up. Get a little bit of core stability and function in here as well. Just breathing. Nice and steadily. And you can release down, and if you want to go into a full cobra or a full upward dog, by all means do. I might give the cobra a little test with bent elbows. And wherever you are, let's push back into a downward facing dog. Okay, from here we're going to come into a plank and we're going to bring our left knee to our left wrist. Can anyone remember the name of the pose we're going into here? Yeah?
Is it half Lord of the Fishes?
It's a good guess, half Lord of the Fishes. Half Lord of the Fishes is like this, but with this knee up to my chest and the other leg out in front. It's a rather disgusting bird you see around a lot of the time. Did someone say pigeon? Yeah, pigeon pose. So you can either come into what we call king pigeon, which is high up here, or you can come to more of a sleeping pigeon, which is either on the elbows or with the forehead on the down. The important thing is that we're pointing back with that, so those toes want to be pointing directly back towards whatever's behind you, and this front foot should be flexed. Okay, so we don't want to be pointing with those toes, we want those to be at a right angle. Okay, and the temptation, if your left foot's forward, the temptation is for your right hip to come up into the air. So just make a real conscious effort to push that hip down. Okay, and we're just going to quickly come through plank, and then we're going to go right knee to right elbow. Sorry, right knee to right wrist. Remember, that back foot, you want those toes pointing backwards behind you, and you want to flex through this front foot. Now that the right leg is forward, your left hip's going to want to come off the mat. So again, just looking to push that one down, and try and come into the lowest version of pigeon if you can. You can see everyone's doing great here, so well done. Okay, and you can come out of posture and just kind of sit on your heels here. I'm just going to jump up so that I can keep my arms behind. You guys stay sat on your heels. We've got plenty of time. So we'll just take a few breaths here, just to recenter ourselves, just to refocus. Maybe try and deepen that breathing a little bit. Consciously try and draw more oxygen in for the next couple of breaths. That's great. And then you can jump back into a plank again. And we come down through Chaturanga. Maybe a couple more press ups just to get a little bit of upper body in. Okay, and on the final one, come down. And again, either a full up dog or for me, a baby cobra. And then we're going to push into down dog. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to angle the left foot at 45 degrees. And we can lunge forward with the front foot. Can anyone remember the name of this pose? Casper? Warrior One, absolutely. Well done. Good stuff. So before we worry about the hands over the head, let's really push through that back foot. The front foot's going to take care of itself, because I imagine most of your weight's through that anyway. We want a 90-degree angle between the shin and the floor. And you'll notice that because the left leg is back, your hip's being pulled back. So let's really square those hips off. And then we can think about bringing the hands overhead. With each exhalation, just try and lean a little bit further into the pose. It might be the case that you need to widen your stance a little bit with each breath or every other breath. Don't forget about those hips being level and really push through that back foot. From here, we're going to go into Warrior Three. Okay, now you can either have your hands down at the sides. You can have them backwards, it's fairly easy. Out at the sides, or if you want to make it hard, you can have the hands out in front. And we're now going to swap feet, so we're going to come back with the opposite foot that was the front foot for our Warrior One. We're going to make sure that we're pushing down through that back heel. We're going to lean forward into the front leg so that we've got that nice 90-degree angle between shin and floor. We're going to get those hips lined up, and then we're going to bring the hands overhead. And from here, we're going to try and come into a Warrior Three. Again, pick your difficulty level. Easiest is just with hands down, hands behind or to the sides, kind of intermediate. And then the more advanced one that we'll work on today is hands out in front if you want to give it a go. A couple more breaths here. As we touch down. Okay, we'll do a little bit of balance now. Let's look to get some work, not just into the quads. I think we could do a little bit of groin as well. I know a couple of people are just struggling with, I know someone did mention groin to me. So this might be a little bit tricky. With tree, you can either start with just the big toe on the mat, or if you want to go straight into a fuller balance, just have it on the calf. Whatever you do, don't rest it on the knee, but if you want to try the slightly more advanced version, you can come up to the groin, all right? Again, just working with whatever best for you. Hands can come to prayer. If you want to make it a little bit harder, hands can come overhead, or you can come into a crane pose here. And it's always a good idea just to pick a spot, as I'm sure you're all aware. Pick a spot on the floor or the back of the room to focus on. Only when your balance gets really good is it easy to look around, okay? And it's actually kind of hard to do. Don't lose sight of those bandhas. Remember, you're pulling the tailbone down to the floor, pulling the belly button into the spine, and focusing on the breath through the nose at all times. Okay, from here, we're going to come into a quadriceps stretch. I'm sure most of you know this from PE or sports classes. The important thing here is that this leg that we've got up in the air, this knee naturally wants to come out in front of the other knee. We need to pull it behind that knee. Because if we don't pull it behind that knee, we're actually not going to be able to engage the big central quadriceps. Once that knee is behind the grounded knee, and I'll try and move sideways to show people on the internet here, you can then push into those hands and come into this ballerina variation, okay? You're going to try and push those hands away from you. And if you're finding that easy, you can then swap to one hand and come into the fuller iteration of ballerina here. Okay, so we're going to swap sides now. We're going to do tree on the other side again. I think we're all beyond this rudimentary pose here, so we can either come onto the calf, and I think most of you want to just go straight into the groin, and that's absolutely fine. Again, hands in prayer, up above the head, or you might come into crane. Whatever feels good for you. And particularly for our partner schools joining us online, I do apologise for any background noise. As you can see, we're out of my sitting room and we're back at school now. So we've got to share this space with whatever sport they're doing next door. It's getting a bit noisy, so apologies. So we'll just try and stay focused on this balance. If you want to test yourself, you could even try moving the arms around a little bit, okay? And try and move your gaze around as well. It gets real difficult. I've nearly lost it. And I think I have lost it. No, just about managed to stay up. Right, so grab hold of the foot now behind the body. Pull that knee behind the knee that's grounded, and then push back into those hands. And if you want the full version, you've obviously got full ballerina that you can come into like this. If you want to test that balance a little bit, wonderful. Okay, let's just get a couple of twists in. Standing twists just before we go down to the ground. And we're just going to pop the hands down, jump back into a plank. And then from this plank position here, we'll just see if we can hop into cross legs. We'll swap the feet round the other way now, so that we've got our legs crossed the wrong way round. It's going to feel a bit weird. And we'll just take a few breaths here. Again, focusing on all of those key principles that we've mentioned numerous times now. Focus on that breath, in through the nose, out through the nose. Focusing on strong abdomen, pulling the belly button into the spine and allowing that tailbone to come down. So sit up nice and straight. And we're going to allow the hands to come up over the head. And we're going to take our left hand, we're going to put it on our right knee. You can take the other hand behind the back and we're going to look over that shoulder now, look over the right shoulder. With each exhalation, use that left hand to pull on the leg so that you can look even further round over that shoulder. Breathing nice and deep. As we're going to shoot the hands up overhead, and we're going to do the same on the other side now. Okay, you can shoot the hands up overhead, and you're all going to stay there doing that. I'm just going to go close that door because the background noise is a bit annoying. So keep the hands right up overhead. Focus on that breath, big breaths in. Okie dokie. Right, from here, what I'd like you to do, keep the hands over the head. You can bring the right hand down onto the mat, okay? And it should look something like this. As you bring the right hand down, I'm just going to lean over. Now, my back is constricting me quite a lot here, so I might even struggle to get onto the elbow, but do try and get down onto the elbow. If the elbow is really easy, I can see for some of you, negate the elbow. Pull the elbow out and see if you can get the ribs down towards the ground. That's much harder, right? Well, we can cheat and do it, yeah, sure. So if you want to get, yeah, why not? Let's just all, yeah, that's, no, we don't do it like that. But I admire the enthusiasm. Okay, yeah. Okay, we're going to come over to the other side, see if you can get down onto the elbows the other side. Now, obviously, what we had Gregor doing there was he came off his glutes. So you want to keep both glutes firmly on the ground, okay? As we lean over. Okay, and now we're going to see if we can come down onto our elbows. And if the elbows are easy, as I can see it is for some of you, try and get down onto the forehead. And from here, we're going to come into our straddle. So this is a seated, wide-legged forward fold, all right? So we're going to flex through both feet. Whoever had the groin issue, this is going to be particularly difficult, all right? So I would suggest a butterfly pose instead. That should be a bit easier. How's that? Still a bit sore? Feet a little bit wider then, and just sit like this, holding your legs. And just gently ease into whatever you can. Everyone else should be in full straddle now. You can have the hands just behind the back just to help scaffold for the first part of this. Take a nice few deep breaths in here. Remember, toes really, really pointing up to the sky, flexing through those feet. And just see, again, I've been out of action for a little while, so my flexibility has diminished significantly. But see if you can just grab hold of the big toes while keeping the back nice and straight. If that is difficult for you, as you can see Theo's doing there, bend the knees, okay? So if you need to bend the knees to keep that back straight, that's absolutely fine. There's no shame in doing that at all, okay? And we're just gonna try and keep the back and the arms as straight as we can. Yeah, it's feeling good, just go for it, right?
Yeah,
that's great.
More in the other position.
That's odd, but you know your body, so yeah, do whatever feels good to you. And we're just going to release there, and we're going to see if we can come down towards the elbows a little bit. And then we will try that butterfly pose. So if you just want to stay in straddle instead, then do. Okay, everyone else can come to butterfly. And again, scaffolding behind the back so that we can push those hips nice and close to the ankles. Breathing nice and deep. Maybe we can bring that pelvis off the ground a little bit. Yeah, don't worry if we can't do that, that's absolutely fine. You guys know your body. Even if you just want to do it for a couple of seconds and then release, that's also fine. Stay nice and strong in the core. Excellent, we're going to cross the legs around. I'm just going to come onto those elbows again. And from here, we're going to put our hands slightly behind and slightly to the side of our glutes. And we're just going to engage those glutes, allowing the pelvis to come up nice and high. Shoulder blades come towards one another behind the back. Breathing nice and deep. It's really good to see some of you not even trying this because you know it's not going to work for your bodies, and that's great. Okay, a big part of this is just as we sit back down, it's worth just catching our breath for a couple of moments. You know, a big part of sport and those sort of competitive endeavors is to constantly be judging yourself against other people, and you know, you're either a winner or a loser. But yoga is really the opposite of that. It's about a unity between, you know, body and mind, as well as between all other people. So you shouldn't be judging yourself against others. Often the mistake people make is they might have a bit of an injury or they're not feeling great, and they see someone else doing something and think, I've got to do it. I'm really impressed that you're not feeling that way inclined, because yoga is about just you and what you're capable of doing. You shouldn't worry about what anyone else is doing. So let's come to a seated forward fold. I won't really be able to demonstrate this at all, just with my back, because I've not stopped going on about. So flex through the feet. As you can see, I'm going to need to have the knees at basically 45 degrees to make this happen. But have the feet as straight or as bent as you need, so that we can just hug the chest into the quads. Excellent. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to fall back and hug the knees into the chest here, flex through the feet, have the head resting down on the ground, and we'll just rock side to side, nice and gently.
And now bring the chin in between the knees and continue to rock side to side. And allow the the soles of the feet to come down onto the ground now. Push the pelvis into the air for a nice simple bridge. I would say at this point, if you have a full wheel in your practice, then go for it. I can't even begin to think about doing that myself yet. If you don't know what a wheel is, don't even try to do anything beyond this pose, all right? With each exhalation, just try and get the pelvis a little higher off the ground. And if you want, you can use your hands here, as you can see I'm doing, just to wedge under the back, just to give yourself a little bit more height in this pose. And release. And just allow now the hands and the feet to come either side. We'll go into our Shavasana at this stage, all right? So we're just going to relax the body down. We're going to close the eyes. I'll turn the lights off just to help with the process, but you guys will just start to wind down now. Let's just try and find a place of stillness in our minds. So, just as we're meditating here and relaxing for the final part of the session, do remember that yoga is really only about meditation. The postures that we focus on in the West are a recent development that were initially only instigated in the traditional forms of yoga to help people be able to sit for long periods of time in a meditative seated position. And really, yoga is just about meditation. When we read the Yoga Sutras, the seminal text from 1,500 years ago, we'll see that the opening lines translate as yoga is about quietening the mind. So just begin to hone in with a particularly sharp focus now on your breath. Anytime thoughts or feelings emerge in your brain, in your conscious mind, just gently let them go in the same way you allow the breath to fall out every time you exhale. And there are a variety of different ways and techniques that we can use to help dissipate the thoughts in our head. And I'll run through a few of these with you today. This can be our point of focus for our relaxation. So every time you exhale, just imagine as you exhale, along with all the carbon dioxide and nitrogen and leftover oxygen that comes out of your body, imagine too any thought that might have emerged in your mind can also just be breathed out. So anytime you notice that you're thinking about your homework or what you're up to this weekend, maybe you had an argument with someone earlier today, whatever the thoughts are, as you exhale, just allow those thoughts to drift off with the breath as it leaves the body. We'll just work with that metaphor just for a few more breaths. Now, perhaps some of you are struggling with that metaphor, so I've got a few more that we can work with. One that people find useful is to imagine that your thoughts are leaves on a stream.
Okay? So anytime a thought or a feeling emerges in your mind, you can just visualize that particular thought as a leaf that's landed on a stream or a river or a body of water, and it's just drifting off into the distance. And as the leaf drifts off, it takes with it the thought or the feeling that you might have been experiencing. And we could introduce one final way of thinking about this, or maybe a couple. I think similar actually to the leaves on a stream. You can imagine blowing up balloons and letting them go off into the air. Maybe as you blow the balloon up in your mind, you are putting into the balloon whatever thought or feeling you have. It's a similar way of thinking about it to leaves on the stream. The final metaphor that we can try and work with for the last part of our meditative practice is one I've learned from the Headspace app, actually, which is a great app I'd highly recommend. And you can imagine here that your thoughts and your feelings are like traffic on a busy intersection. Okay, you've got the cars, they're racing by in the same way that all of those thoughts and feelings emerge in your cognizance. Now, there's not much you can do about that traffic at the intersection. You could maybe try and run into the traffic and stop the cars. And sometimes people mistakenly think that this is what meditation is about sort of forcing the mind to stop. But if you try and do that, you're only going to get run over. Yeah? So instead, what you need to do is just accept that these thoughts are going to come and go in the same way that the traffic will always be there at the intersection. And just watch the cars go by from the side of the road. Yeah, that's all you can do really, is just watch the traffic go by. Because meditation isn't about forcing thoughts out. It's about allowing them to dissipate into the deeper parts of the mind. Because you'll never stop the thoughts completely. You are a thinking creature by design. That's why humans have been so prosperous over the generations and created civilizations, because we think a lot. But that blessing can also be a curse. And so coming up with some techniques just to help us steady the mind and allow any intrusive or unwanted thoughts just to, as I've said, dissipate away. It's a very powerful tool that I hope we can all look to develop together in the years ahead. So just for the last part of our meditation now, I'll leave you in silence for a few minutes. Try as best you can to focus on one of those analogies that I've given. Whether that's just breathing the thoughts out, whether it's leaves on the stream, whether it's blowing up balloons, or whether it's traffic at the intersection. Pick one of those and just work with that. Anytime you notice that the mind has gone off wandering and thinking about other things, just allow those thoughts to dissipate. A couple of minutes now in silence. Just work on that in your own time. Just remember, anytime you become aware that you're thinking or feeling something in particular, just come back to the analogy that you want to work with and just allow those thoughts or feelings to dissipate away into your consciousness. And in your own time, just gently start to wiggle the toes and the feet. Very gently blink the eyes open. And then, as long as it takes, just come to a seated position now on your mats. No rush. So today's meditation really did focus on the internal side of things. But do remember that your experience of the external world is an experience that only happens in your minds. So in that sense, it's internal as well. And in the same way that, if someone says something to you that you don't like, the best thing to do is just walk off and ignore them rather than react badly to that situation, which would only compound it and make it worse. The same is true for the way you encounter yourself in your mind, if you think about it. If you try and wrestle the mind and you try and block out all of your thoughts, it's only going to aggravate the situation further. It would be like, as Alan Watts says, a little bit like trying to iron rough water. You'll never make water smooth with an iron. You'll just mess it up even more than it was messed up before. So just try and allow those thoughts and feelings to dissipate rather than fight against them. And I would argue that that's a really pragmatic and positive way of thinking about all walks of life, whether that's interpersonal relationships, self-perception, approach to school life, whatever it might be. So, as always, thank you very much, everyone, and I offer you all a namaste. Partner schools, thank you very much for joining us on Zoom. And yeah, apologies, I've been out of action for a couple of weeks with this back, but hoping to be back fully now. Cheers.